funding for your idea is phase one. That one, you can either get from family members or other people that love you very much. But likelihood is probably 80% of ideas are funded with the person's own funds for money that they've saved. So for startup funding, some people have a full-time job. They'll now be looking around for investors who want to start up with them, and they'll have money in their savings accounts. No, you have to spend that money so that you too have skin in the game to at least start up and give investors something to look at. So it's highly difficult to get funding for an idea, unless you're the kind of person that has worked in PwC and McKinsey for like 20 years and they see you as an established business consultant, you have an MBA too, and they see, okay, that this person is really bankable on the back of their credibility. But if it's just like I was when I was starting my business in my early 20s with no real credibility, it's very difficult to get funding for your idea. Now, funding for your business is a completely different conversation, because a business has a balance sheet, it has a cash flow statement, it has evidence that this idea is capable of generating money. So it has moved from an idea now to a business, a revenue generating business, where investors can look at it and assess whether or how they're going to get their money back. You can now use those funds that you have generated to construct a model of how they're going to get their business back. But there are difficulties in the healthcare sector because healthcare businesses are poorly understood in Nigeria, both by banks and by alternative financiers. And apart from being poorly understood, they're also slower growing than a lot of businesses like the oil and gas business, for example. These are the two difficulties, as well as the absence of data that a lot of investors tend to complain about, and also the revenues. So in oil and gas, a $50 million deal is a small deal in oil and gas. A $100 million deal is a small deal in oil and gas. I think the biggest healthcare deals in Nigeria are probably between that $50 to $100 million. And also, they're very fragmented. Healthcare is very fragmented. So in my book, I actually advocate centralization of healthcare services, tertiary healthcare services, because that makes it easier to fund. But right now, they're very fragmented, very few patients, low occupancy rate, very small target population. Everybody is targeting the same very small middle and upper class. So these are the difficulties that investors face. In terms of entrepreneurs, people mentioned the education of the entrepreneurs. So, for example, being able to understand the language of business and say the things that investors want to hear. I think that might be a difficulty. And also, I think the cash flows of the business and the ability to scale up as entrepreneurs might also be a difficulty. But in summary, I think that there are two groups of people: the financiers on one side and the healthcare providers on the other side. And there's a huge gap between both of them. And I think that both of them will have to shift ground to try and meet in the middle to provide the best healthcare services to Nigerian citizens across the country. That's the only way that we can grow with private sector financing. And for that, they will have to meet in the middle and both shift grounds in terms of their requirements to be able to do that. Nowhere in the world has there been a profitable business model to take care of people at the bottom of the pyramid, all of the people at the bottom of the pyramid. So generally speaking, people at the bottom, the lowest levels of society, and don't forget, we have more poverty than India, we have more poverty than Bangladesh, we have more poverty than Mexico. We have the highest concentration of poor people in the entire world here in Nigeria. So it is extremely difficult, and almost nowhere in the world have they achieved it, to be able to take care of all of their poor. In the UK, the GDP per capita is $40,000. That means that if you add up all the money that the UK is making and divide it by the number of people, you get $40,000 each. But still, you find that people at the bottom of their own pyramid, that is not even as low as the bottom of our pyramid, are unable to pay for their own health care. I just came back from California. The GDP of that state is 1.2 trillion. That is almost 5 times what the country of Nigeria makes. There are only 40 million people in California. There are 180 million people here. But still, in that California, if you go to Skid Row, where there are 12,000 homeless people living, if you go to San Francisco, where there are people coming up to you on the streets, they are too poor to afford healthcare with that huge GDP and that huge public sector investment. So now come to talk of Nigeria. There needs to be more public sector investment to take care of those people at the bottom of the pyramid. And that will help when there's a payer system that enables some form of payment to come from them to the service providers, private service providers. Then there may be a business case for taking care of those people, or more of a business case for taking care of those people. I'm not saying it can't be done. There are a few business models in Mexico, in Pakistan, where you can see profitable business models looking after the bottom of the pyramid, but they're not looking after everybody. So for us to make more of an effort to leave fewer people behind, we definitely need to innovate around policy and public sector funding of healthcare. For the premium, it's more simple because these ones have the ability to pay. So you can build more of a business model around them that is going to be bankable. Because what do they mean by bankable? They mean profitable and scalable. So those business models that are both profitable and scalable, so you can see the market size and the market size are big. It's easier to get funding. And also, if they are profitable, scalable, and also auditable. So you can look back at the history of the business. You can see that they're not just keeping their own accounts and telling you that this is what we're making. An auditor has also looked at it and said, this is truly what they're making. That's what, 300 naira. That means you need 30 million customers, or 20 million, or 10 million customers. That's a lot of people, right? So we need to look at two things. We need to look at the premium clients and see how we can make sure that these businesses are profitable, scalable, and auditable. And for the grassroots, I think that we can, with a lot of innovation, find out some profitable models. I mean, Indomie makes most of its money from the bottom of the pyramid. But notice, even they have started now their premium Indomie. Have you seen it, the black one? They're now putting prawns and everything inside because they had to upgrade their product. They have to make more money. They can't be selling at this price to everybody. They need to also put something on the market that, rich people will buy. Because it's more profitable, you can charge a higher margin. So even the kings of the bottom of the pyramid have started moving up. So healthcare is essential. Indomie is not essential. So you don't see public sector or a budget for companies like Indomie Noodles, but we need more of a budget for healthcare because healthcare is a fundamental human right and should be available, accessible at the right price and affordable to every single Nigerian. But that will take us advocating for better policy, and it will also take more public sector funding going into the space. And it will take people like you and me and anybody watching in the healthcare space who's a stakeholder in the healthcare space actually speaking up more about this. I don't think that we as healthcare providers have been vocal enough about this issue at all. And I always use the example that when Bill Gates came to Nigeria to launch the private sector healthcare alliance, he didn't call any doctor. He didn't even call anybody that works in healthcare. He called Dangote and a banker. There's no bankers meeting that I've ever seen in my life that they'll be calling doctors to come and talk about economic policy. That is because there are prominent bankers that can be at the meeting. But he could not find any prominent doctors that could be in the meeting. So we're not even influential in our own space. We're not dictating policy in our own space. Our cement producers and our bankers are dictating healthcare policy more efficiently than us. So I think that this is a sort of wake-up call from the private sector because it's a very important question that you asked. Where's the money going to come from for the grassroots? It's going to come from a small mix of private sector, but more public sector funding allocated and used efficiently by private sector players to deliver those services to the people that need it.